Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to In5D Radio's Cosmic Awakening Show, where we are serving this galaxy and beyond. My name is Michelle Walling, and I'll be your host for the next few hours. My goal here is to reach as many people as possible with information which will aid in their spiritual awakening. I'd like to cut right to our show tonight because I have a very special guest, and he doesn't have a lot of time to spend with us tonight. So, quickly, I'd like to give a special shout-out to our Facebook friends, Facebook groups, and Cosmic family listening tonight. I'm a part of a couple of great Facebook groups I wanted to mention. The first group is the Big Starseeds group with approximately 32,000 members, and the Hybrid Children Community group, which has support for those who are aware of their abductions and their hybrid children, and they're seeking support in order to deal with this. Hello to everyone in the chat room. If you'd like to be part of our chat room tonight, you can scroll down to the bottom of the Blog Talk Radio page where you played this show, and you just simply log in through Blog Talk. It's free. Well, speaking of my special guest, I'm honored to bring on someone tonight who has learned to live in this world, but is not of this world. Simon Parkes is a UK politician who has bridged the gap between his extraterrestrial origins and contact with his desire to stand free as a sovereign being to help humanity break free, and he uses a political venue as well to do that. To get a good idea of Simon's authenticity, you can search for YouTube, as he has done a great job explaining in prior interviews his association with an extraterrestrial race of Mantid beings, and since a very young age he's had contact with. The purpose of bringing Simon on the show today is not so much to add validity to his experiences. Those are his experiences, and I've researched it, and I can resonate with what he's experiencing, but more to move forward to some questions that we all want to know about changing our reality today. It's a rare occurrence to be able to pick the brain of someone who's been on both sides of the fence and comes forth to speak about it. So, Simon Parkes, thank you for joining me today on the Cosmic Awakening Show.
Hello, Michelle. What a wonderful intro. You really do know your stuff. That's incredibly well researched and well understood, and you're obviously a very spiritual woman. I think that's the most succinct presentation from introduction I've ever heard.
Succinct. That's a new word for me. Thank you so much. I guess I am getting practice at this job that I came here in this lifetime to do. So that's beautiful. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you joining me on my New Year's Day in the U.S. And to me, it commemorates a new beginning, a day filled with information that will empower those who listen to our show live and on the recording. And I just gave a brief introduction of you because I know those listening can have access to your life story through the wonderful interviews you've done. But I wanted to give you a few minutes to cover any of the background that you feel is important before we jump into some questions about, I'm going to be talking about your family and about your knowledge. And so if you have anything, like if you'd like to talk about the fact that you are an elected councillor in the UK and you've been re-elected, that might be a good place to start.
Okay, well, first of all, what I'd just like to say is, having for so many years not had a website, I finally given in my own little website. If you just go simonparkes.org, that will take you to a very simple little website which allows anybody to send me an email. I resisted for quite a long time, Michelle, because I know there are certain people in the elites who would like to take it down. So we've just got this up. I've been very superbly helped by Fran, who's done so much to help me get that up and running. So thank you, Fran. And so far it's still up. So if any of your listeners want to go to simonparks.org, they can just send me an email. Yes, in terms of the question now, I don't think 10 years ago somebody could have come up and said, I see UFOs, I speak to aliens, and then stood to be elected. It just wouldn't have happened. And I think what that proves beyond any question of a doubt is just how much humanity is evolving and developing, so that what was perhaps not acceptable 10 years ago is now more open to the consciousness. So I'm delighted that all the members of the public have elected me to a position of office, a political office. I am standing for re-election. That's coming up next year. As you say, if people are too sure of my background, they can go and visit my website, or they can go and have a look on YouTube. But perhaps it would be better just to move on and just do any questions, Michelle.
Okay, great, because I am going to jump around a lot of different places, and as multidimensional beings, I think it's good practice for everybody to get into that groove. The world would be completely different today if people realized that they are actually souls having this physical experience, and that they have lived many lives on other planets and perhaps even in other universes. And taking over the media seems to be that the only way that we can get through to people about this information. And ironically, most people think that if they see it on TV, then it must be real. I was wondering, are there any groups of benevolent extraterrestrials that have infiltrated the media sector that you know of in order to help make maybe the switch to some kind of national announcement in the future? Are you aware of any of your family or any of families that work with your family?
Benevolence don't infiltrate in the same way that malevolence or negatives do. If you're a benevolent extra-dimensional being, then you actually respect the sovereign right and the sovereign will of every sentient living creature. However, that doesn't stop good people or good beings from volunteering. And so what we've seen over the last 25 to 30 years, predominantly, although that's sped up recently, we've seen a number of souls incarnate into human bodies, and these souls are particularly creative, which means that the body that they go inside becomes a very creative organism, and they can express themselves through music, through art, or through television, radio production. So there are now a number of people in reasonably high positions in the media who, whilst they are playing the game and towing the line, they are actually sovereign beings and are waiting for an opportunity to put an alternative case. So I don't want listeners to think of a spaceship landing and people coming out and going into the nearest radio station. What I would like them to understand is that somebody applies for a job, they're the best person for the job, they get it, but that person actually has a commitment to the human race. So that's what we're seeing in a number of organizations over the planet. Good, decent people are not infiltrating, they're just obtaining jobs as anybody else does.
I have to laugh at myself because I just realized I guess I'm one of those people. I may not be there yet in some high-level position, but, I'm getting my feet wet right now. So, yeah, that's I agree with you. And the UFO activity that we can physically see with our eyes in the sky has really ramped up in the last 5 years or so. And you have to wonder, with our military having craft that has been back engineered for at least 50 years, and the fact that they have radar technology that would be able to detect them, I was just wondering, in your opinion, what percentage of these crafts are the government's and what percentage of these crafts are actually the malevolent extraterrestrial beings?
I can't give you that figure because in order to know that, I'd have to know the overall number. And I would have to understand how many elite government crafts were actually flying that night and then do that as a percentage. And unfortunately, I don't have the information for either of that. But what I can tell you is that if you see a triangle shaped craft, that would be predominantly elite human. These were back engineered from grey technology, from the little greys. So triangle craft are 99%, we can be sure, are elite. They're used also with MILABs and abductions of people. They've worked hand in glove with the black helicopters, so that's something to say. Not all alien craft that enter the atmosphere are, negatives. You've got the high-energy beam weapons placed around the globe. You know yourself that one is at Pine Gap in Australia. There's 2 in the United States mainland. Now, they don't fire on negative aliens. They fire on positive aliens because, obviously, the negatives control the elite in the American government or some elements of the American government. So when alien spacecraft are militarily engaged by human agency, then in most cases it's because it's a benevolent spacecraft that is being attacked by proxies on Earth for negative forces.
And that's one of the other questions that I had about the benevolence. I know that they're not allowed to directly, interfere in the evolution of humanity, but on the other hand, humanity's free will has been taken away through trickery and deceit, and we'll get into how they actually used that against you when you were a child. But my question is, are these benevolent beings that, perhaps since we are multidimensional, they could even be our future selves, are they actually communicating with us through our higher selves to help give us hints and help light our path to our awakening to actually what's happening? Are they working with us, or are they just there to make sure that the planet doesn't get blown up?
No, their commitment isn't just to the planet. Their commitment is to the human race, because there are a number of humanoid aliens out there that have a very, very close link to Earth humans, and we are part of the same family. And what happens to us on this planet has a ripple effect right across the multiverse. Okay, to answer the question, whilst they won't militarily get involved in terms of landing on main roads and fighting battles, they are actually, or have been involved in covert military operations. A number of underground bases over the last 2.5 years have been destroyed or taken out by benevolent forces. A number of high-ranking, human military people have retired. And I think what we've also seen is that a large number of communications have been sent to people and are waking them up. So more and more people are becoming awake. And when I say awake, I mean questioning, not accepting what the government is telling them, becoming much more spiritually aware. That means loving the planet, loving other people, loving animals, loving plants, and respecting life. Now, you can't look at that in isolation. If you look at the way that the Earth has changed since the 21st of December 2012, has been a tremendous change with humanity in a very short period of time. And that's why some of these elite groups are, as we speak, are literally losing their fingers off the levers of power. So it's about leveling the playing field. It's about making it more viable for decent, ordinary, good humans to take back what should always have been theirs. So you can't, if you don't know the truth, how can you act? So what's happened over these last few years is that truth has been made available to those people who are prepared to see it. And finally, yes, the human race was tricked because the human race is a very naive race, and I don't mean that rudely. We're a very young star family. When you're billions of years old, you've seen it all and you've done it all. But when you're a very young race, the human race is like children, very trusting. Can't believe that other people would be evil, and very, very easy to trick. However, it's still free will, because if you allow somebody to trick you, you are allowing that. And this is the problem for benevolence, because where do you draw the line? Because if the indigenous population are allowing a very small minority of people to basically destroy them, well, they're allowing it. They're giving that permission. And about 3, 4, 5 years ago, enough was enough. And a large number of benevolents formed a council within a council and decided that they would become much more aggressive and start taking action. And so we have seen the underground bases being taken out. We've seen the portals, which have been supplying the malevolence with energy and reinforcements, have been blocked or guarded. So there is a heck of a lot going on, but to the ordinary man and woman in the street, they don't see any of that.
Right. Now, and who are these benevolents? From what I understand from books like The Prism of Lyra by Alyssa Royale, it could very well be around 12 different races that have DNA actually in the current bodies of the humans right now, which would include Syrians, Pleiadians, different. Is that your understanding, that there are several races of benevolent extraterrestrials that have basically been involved in changing or adding their DNA to humanity to level the playing field, as you mentioned?
We've got to make a split between DNA and souls.
Okay, yes, the physical body.
Yeah. Yes. This is the short answer to what you said. If any of your audience look at their clock, whether it be a digital not running in 24 hours or an analog clock, it runs from 1 to 12. There are 12 months in the year. The 12 is a very important figure. Throughout human history, there are 12 humanoid groups who have added their genetics to the developing body of the native creature that lived on this planet, so that we now, as a human creature, have a linkage to at least 12, but 12 primary humanoid groups who do feel a kinship and a responsibility for the creatures that are on this planet. So it is absolutely no surprise that other creatures who see family ties have done all they can to influence and try to balance out the negative aspect. You ask specific questions. One of the highest human groups is the Lyran group. You've already mentioned that name.
Right.
I would refer to that as a higher human. Then we have the Pleiadian group, they're higher humans. And then we have the Syrian group, they're just about higher humans. And then you have a magic line, and then you have the human humans. You have the earth humans underneath that.
Right.
And we're all compatible. We all share values. We all share understandings. We look very similar. And there are other humanoid groups which don't appear in books or texts. And there are other higher groups that have just energy bodies that are not physically incarnate, but they can trace a human existence in a human line. So it is these creatures that have decided that they're not going to turn their back on the human race, because this planet, like so many other planets, is at a point of evolving. Now, what do? Do they just turn their back and let them get on with it? No, they can't do that. They have a commitment. The question is, how far are they prepared to go? Because if they go too far, then the human race might as well just sit on its backside and say, well, we won't do anything. We'll let everybody else do it for us. And then we will not get that ascension. We will not get that push forward. So it's a very difficult balance between giving the humans just enough assistance to get them to do it themselves. And as I often say on radio shows, there is no Custer, there's no 7th Cavalry going to gallop into the rescue. It is the human race that must save itself. And that's where we are with it.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. And, so that's why it's so important to get this kind of information out and to start spreading it far and wide. And that, this is a clarion call to all of those who are listening. If you're listening right now, you are one of the way showers, because you have awakened earlier than most of humanity. And we usually, we probably agreed to come here to do this and to help out. And we are the cavalry. So, Simon, for our listeners, you did mention specifically the date of December 21st of 2012. Since a lot of us a lot of people were disappointed that date because they didn't have anything that they could actually see in their reality that occurred. But we know that something has occurred because as working with In5D.com, we are able to run the statistics on how many people are reading the website, and you know, it's just exploded since then. I was actually in bed myself with very, very bad ascension flu, or some kind of horrible thing that happened to me for 3 days before and 2 days after that date. I actually had to crawl to the bathroom one time because I thought my whole world had flipped upside down. I felt like I didn't have any kind of gravity, or I felt like I was floating and was very ill. But can you explain just briefly what actually did happen on that date?
Well, first of all, let's just turn it around on its head. You weren't actually being affected by the Ascension program. You were being affected by a piece of machinery called the CERN Collider, which fortunately didn't operate actually on the 21st, but it could operate on the peak-up kit. If you were to look at a graph, the Ascension period is always talked about as the 21st December 2012. In actual fact, it was 2 to 3 days either side of that. That was the peak of it. And because you, Michelle, are very connected to Source, you were actually already, by agreement, getting ready to make that jump with the Earth. And you were affected, like many people were affected by the activation of a CERN device, which was primarily to prevent ascension. Obviously, that device mysteriously stopped working just on that day, so it didn't actually have the effect. So I'm very sorry that you were made ill by human technology, but you're back now. To answer the second part of the question, this is a problem that humanity faces. We go to school and we learn about the physical world. We're taught a load of very ancient mumbo-jumbo, and when we're young, we believe what we're told. Of course we do, because we're a very young race and we're very trusting. And so people wanted fireworks display, they wanted the earth to open, they wanted a star to come down, they wanted a mountain to fall, and they wanted something. You go right back to the days of the Bible, and there's always, God, give me a sign. Because people wanted physical sign, because their life is made up of physical actions. You pick up a pencil, you open a door handle, you know, everything you touch, you smell. And so when it happened, it didn't happen in a physical sense, it happened in an energetic sense. Of course it did, because the change had to be on an energy level. And so for the vast majority of people who are not yet at that point, they are evolving, they are changing, but they weren't yet sensitive enough. They hadn't reached that point that they could detect that, but they had gone far enough down the road to be caught with it and to be taken and developed. And so the vast majority of people say, well, I didn't experience anything, so nothing happened. Well, it did happen. And if you, obviously I'm a politician, I get all the facts and figures that I ask for, and I can tell you that since the 21st of December 2012, in all the industrialized nations of the world, crime has gone down. So, in fact, humanity has become more peaceful since the 21st of December 2012, since ever records began. I'll just add a caveat to that. The good people are getting better, and the bad people are getting worse. So what we're seeing is an increase in violent crime, an increase in sexual crime. So the nasty crime is getting worse, but the amount of crime is reducing substantially. And this is absolutely proof that the vast majority of humans are becoming more spiritual. And so we will have a polarization between everyone who's good on one side and everyone who can't make that change at this moment. Doesn't mean they won't in the future, but they are hell-bent on a particular course of action because they are not accepting or they don't want to make the change. So I absolutely have no doubt that the most pivotal, the most important thing happened to this planet on the 21st of December 2012, and I'm really, really pleased about it.
Well, I am a testament to that, for sure. What I'd like to do is I would like to talk about the Mantid race, those who claimed you as their own and that you grew up with. Tell us about the contract you made with them as a young child. And as we had talked about before, there might have been a little bit of trickery involved because they asked you, they asked you a question, but then you answered before they got to tell you the fine print.
No, I don't accept that. First of all, I'm obviously British and I use the word Mantid. Mantid, but you guys, of course, use the word mantis. So just for the audience who perhaps wonder what a mantid is, it's a mantis in American, and the Australians refer to it as manta. I would go along with the line, but if you have an old saying in England that give them an inch and they'll take a mile. So what actually happened, and I think that's more to do with probably other people misrepresenting my story, is that when I had the offer to be taken under the wing of a mantis or a mantid, the deal was given to me, but the deal it excited me so much, particularly about knowing about the future and knowing about the past. And that really, really excited me because I'm fascinated about the past and I'm interested in the future. I was so excited that instead of telepathically or just sending, yes please from my mind to his mind, I actually, did what I do down here and opened my mouth and spoke words and just shouted out yes. The only word that I missed out because I interrupted him was the word authority.
Oh, okay.
The only part but because I said yes, all of that contract, whether communicated or not, was valid. So the only word that was missing from it was the word authority. But that's because you've probably been misrepresented by people telling you things that they think I've said.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, that's why we're here to clarify, and people are curious. And, I did watch a video where you were describing, what you call the abductions by your family, basically, because you had contracted with them to allow them to do things to you. They were very polite. They asked your permission to do this or to do that. And it was very curious, though, that you said that they come into your mind, project into your mind, and maybe, you never really even left your house on these particular abductions. They were all done in your house. Is that a correct statement?
Really. It's not an abduction if you agree to it. An abduction is when somebody disagrees. Now, I've never disagreed, so you can't use the word abduction in my case.
Yes,
that's why I use the word experiencer. I use the word experiencer because if an alien creature has got half of the United States Air Force at low level and half of the United States Secret Space Fleet at top level looking for them, it's sometimes impossible to come down, collect a human being and take that human being up without being intercepted, which could actually damage or hurt the human. So what they'll often do is come down and enter your mind and give you an experience. They're probably standing 3 feet away from you, or for our European people, 1 meter away from you, and they'll enter your mind and then give you an experience. And if you're not part of the family, or if you don't have that expertise, you will genuinely think maybe that you've been to Mars, or you genuinely think you've been on a spaceship, or this, that, and the other. And the reality is that they haven't, because it's so much more economical and it's so much less dangerous to actually give you that experience, to pass that information across to you whilst they're literally in the same room, rather than having to take you to Mars physically or take you to some other place. In many cases, they do that physically, but in a number of cases, it's actually more economical and safer just to interact with that person. So I've had so much interaction with these creatures that I can tell immediately whether this is a face-to-face interaction or whether it's like, come on, we've got to go somewhere.
Okay, and just to clarify, your lineage, your physical body, you were born as a human being through the womb, through your mother, I'm sorry, because I know the word mother to you means 2 different things. You did have a human birth. Now, your physical body, does it have the Mantid? Your physical body, does it have the Mantid DNA? A mixture.
as far as I'm aware, then yes, I was born. All I know is I was born very premature and was put in an incubator.
Okay.
I presume that I was born normally. I have no idea. It doesn't really interest me in the slightest. My DNA, if tested by a doctor, I'm sure would find it by and large human, with perhaps just one or two things they couldn't really easily understand. And it's absolutely vital that anybody who is going to work, play, be amongst other creatures must be like that creature, because if you're too different in either looks or actions, you will not be accepted. You will not be able to be part of that system. And in order to be successful, you have to be a part of that system, and you have to understand it, because you can't bring about good change if you haven't experienced the bad, that which is wrong. And if you are living in a cave like a hermit, how can you experience what everybody else is experiencing on the planet? How can you possibly empathize or agree with people if you're stuck away on the mountainside? So you'll find there are many, many people like me who are in there with their sleeves rolled up, are working with people, understanding what's going on, because it keeps you grounded. It reminds you every day of the pain, the filth, the horror that is happening on this planet, and why we need to do something about it. So if you look very hybridized, you have a problem, because people look at you in the street, maybe you go for a job interview and you don't get it. So the more like the indigenous population you are, the better it is.
And I've probably had my contact, but I know that it's not by your Mantid family or Mantis family. It was probably, if I were to guess, by the Greys, who tend to wipe your memory out after you may be immobilized in the bed, which that's really only happened to me one time, but I've never actually remember seeing anybody, any creatures or anybody. But the Greys actually are the ones that are doing the what we call the abductions, where they are taking you for examination, or taking your sperm if you're a male, or your eggs if you're a female. And since I've never had any direct recollection, I have had a few readings that have said that I definitely have children, hybrid children, that are existing on a ship. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because I don't have, proof or any recollection right now. But my question to you is, Simon, I think that you had mentioned that, they showed you that you do have hybrid children as well. What is the purpose of having the hybrid children, other than to help a race of beings continue on that may not have the reproductive skills or the capability to live in our atmosphere? And are we going to be expected to be reunited with these children at some point?
Two questions you put to me there. The first question is, when we talk about Greys, there are a very wide range of Greys.
Yes.
We're talking about the Hollywood Greys with the wraparound eyes, but there are also other Greys with much smaller eyes. And it is more than possible that a number of Greys are, as we speak, being reproduced in a number of underground bases, predominantly in the northern part of the United States, although there is probably a base in Great Britain. And these robotic creatures that have no soul are used in abductions, and that's the true word, of people, to take them to laboratory facilities where they are samples taken, and also for mind control purposes. Though those are Greys acting for a shadow government, and the technology is quite advanced. So we call it my lab. It's this military and laboratory activity where sperm and eggs are taken. Okay, second part of the question. If the humans wipe themselves out on this planet, which isn't looking likely now, but 10 to 15 years ago, before we went on this positive timeline, and we were jumping, I think we jumped 3 times, it looked possible, then it was necessary to have another form of life that could come back onto the Earth, contain other souls, and carry on but with brains somewhat more advanced than humans have, so that we never again wiped each other out. So the hybridization, there's a lot of nonsense written. Most races are capable of cloning themselves.
Right.
Some races can clone themselves every 2,000-3,000 years. When a living creature that's maybe cloned itself 3 or 4 times, it begins to decide that it's time to end that physical body, then it's no big deal, because all that will happen is its soul is removed from its body, held in storage, another non-cloned first-generational body, or indeed a first-generation clone body, is brought forward, and that soul is placed into that body. So the only race that is on its knees, or will become on its knees in the future, is one strand of the grey race. But that's not on this timeline. That's on a separate timeline.
Okay.
So it's more to do with populating the Earth with creatures who have a whole range of souls if the human race decides to wipe itself out.
Well, are we expected in the future at some point, I mean, I know it's our choice, but would it be to our highest advantage to actually meet these children one day? I mean, don't they have souls? Or are they just basically test tube bodies in fluid?
No, they're not. Many of us have seen our hybridized children. I certainly have seen my ones, or some of them. No, they will have souls. It depends. There are a number of ways that these creatures can be made. If they are living creatures, then they will all have souls.
Well, as a human hybrid with soul, you're going to have that longing to meet your parents.
That's interesting. What they tend to want is to have mothering. Not so much to meet the parents in the early stages, but it's the mothering, the genetic connection for mothering. A number of the alien races don't know how to mother. They can look after, and they look after the children much better than most humans do on planet Earth. But they don't have the mothering skills, and I'm using that word as a mother of a baby. Now, as those creatures get older, they are educated in a way that most humans can't understand on the planet. And they fully accept who they are and what they are. And unlike the full humans, they don't walk around the house moping, wondering where my mother is or where my father is. But what they do say is, I would like to meet those that created me, or I would like to meet those that had a hand in my creation. And that is the mindset. So that it would be brought if the adult, the human adult, is of a stable mind. You can't bring some of these children down to these parents because they would just freak out and it would just be awful for them. But where there's a stable adult and the child is brought forward, it is normally because the human adult needs the child, not that the child needs the adult. Because often in these cases, the human realizes that her eggs have been taken or his sperm is taken, and he or she realizes there are children, and they become so taken up with this that maybe they can't work, maybe they can't function, and so in order to help them out, these creatures, or some of them, are brought to them and shown this is your children. And it's usually done to support the human on Earth, not the children, because the children, quite frankly, don't need their parents because they are so highly evolved that they are already at another stage.
And that makes sense. And I actually had to have my uterus taken out because of the pain involved in, I suppose, so many taking the pregnancies so young and having, scar tissue over and over again. And I have had dreams of meeting babies and children and walking hand in hand with children. So that does make sense. And now thank you for that, because I understand it's actually for my benefit more than anything to understand why that had happened.
Well, let me just carry on then, because I didn't understand there was a personal link. You didn't say that. Now that you have, you will have agreed to what you do or have done.
Mm-hmm.
A long time in the past. From a physical human perspective, it is incredibly difficult to give birth or allow life to come into this planet and not to see it. Because from a human perspective, this is something that we expect as our right. However, what you're doing is you're actually playing a much higher game. You're not just helping yourself, you're helping all of humanity and of the multiverse. So you are bringing forth, as many women are, bringing forth new life for a higher purpose. But on a human physical level, it's incredibly difficult. And I've met many women who have undergone what you've undergone. And depending on each individual woman's understanding of what she's doing and why she's doing it, therein lies the secret to actually getting completion of this and to actually be at peace with it. Because, the work you've done has probably accelerated the planet by 15 to 20 years.
Wow. Well, I did want to share that, my personal story only, so I could help other people. And, because it's difficult. And, at one point I was having so much pain, I just finally had to say, that's it. I didn't know. I wasn't awakened at the time to what was happening. But what I did know is I had severe pain, and I couldn't live with it. And I had a lot of, I don't mean to gross anybody out, but I did have a lot of bleeding at one period that was unexplained. I didn't have cysts. There must have been just a lot of scar tissue and a lot of trauma to my body. So for those, who are dealing with situations and they actually do have memories of children, their babies being taken from them, at one point, we can stand in our sovereignty and we can say no more. I know I had an agreement. I believe that whatever the agreement was, as of now, I stand in my power and I say that's enough. And you can actually speak to them out loud or, telepathically, but you can make it known that you're done. So I just wanted to put that out there for those who are listening who do have, and that goes for men as well. I've had a show before where, men will wake up and have, this one guy on the show actually had a being on top of him having sex with him, and he did ejaculate within her to have a baby. So, there's many, many, many of these stories. But I do want to change the subject before I start crying. I do have a question from Loveless Brennan in the chat room that goes along with a question that I wanted to ask you, Simon. I know that you don't know everything. You're not here to, to basically say you know everything, but I really hope you know something about this. What is happening with our sun? NASA has been covering up images of the sun for a very long time now, deleting the live feed and doctoring the images. But just last week, I saw an image of the sun that was taken, or a movie that was taken by an astronomer, that I'm going to describe it. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it looked like golden electricity shooting out from it. And I think it was for at least a whole day. And just yesterday, images from, and I'm not sure if it's SOHO or where these sun images come from or if it's NASA or whatever, but just yesterday, and I posted this on my Facebook page for all of you that want to look at it, there is an image of the sun. Normally it's all yellow, and it has all this electrical looking stuff, but just yesterday the top and the bottom have these huge holes. They're like black, it's like black on it. So it's like part of the electricity, in other words, has been rubbed out. Do you know, is our sun organic? What is it, a Stargate? What's going on with our sun at this time?
Okay, well, the SOHO space camera is actually run by NASA, so they're one and the same. I think the craft was launched in 1995, and it's probably one of the longest operational craft going. But I think what the audience might be surprised to know is that there are a huge number of missions, unmanned, unmanned spacecraft actually on a course where they can either film the sun or go into part of it. NASA don't want people to know exactly why. The reason is that it's important. And the sun is having a tremendous effect on heating up all the planets in our solar system from the inside upwards. It is possible in a suitably designed alien spacecraft to actually go right up to the sun and tweak the frequency of that star to either increase or decrease the amount of energy that it's bathing our planet and the other planets with. And quite often, an alien spacecraft will go up to the sun and engage with the sun to do something. That's actually the positives who are working with the sun, because there is a quarantine around a number of the planets in our solar system at the moment, and the sun is one of those that's been quarantined. So negatives can't have access to the sun at the moment. So when we talk about global warming, there is a warming, but it's not the utter nonsense that's being put forward by mainstream news. The planet is warming up from the inside. It is part of the ascension process, and our star plays as a regulator. It's like an old piece of machinery. It actually governs the speed at which change occurs.
Okay, so our sun is a stargate, and the changes that we are seeing are probably from benevolent beings who are not allowed to interject in our evolution, but on the other hand are doing some things that may help us to take in more energy from the great central sun, or some more photons or something along that lines?
We're talking about energy that we can't see. We're talking about beyond. We're talking about ascension energy. We're talking about consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The sun plays a vital part, but of course we, as very primitive humans, understand it as heat. That's as far as we understand it as. And of course, heat as a form of energy, light, which is just, light is a visible format to us. There's so many other frequencies that our human eyes cannot detect and see. And there are so many other frequencies that powerful machines or computers or devices cannot detect, because we've not yet reached a consciousness level that we can develop or invent a machine. Albert Einstein looked beyond, therefore he visualized something, therefore he created a machine to measure it. But if you don't envisage something, then you don't build a machine to measure it. So just because there isn't a machine on this earth at the moment that can measure or identify something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So the star is not the cause of the ascension for humanity. That's coming from source. But the star is playing a very important role in regulating the rate or speed at which the planets develop. And that's why it was put into quarantine. And that's why it's important that the negatives don't actually have access to it. There is a portal there. You can enter and go. As difficult as that is for very established people to understand, it is possible to get right up close to the sun without burning up if you have the correct type of spacecraft.
Okay, I just found it very, interesting that those things are being seen on the sun for the first time in, any time that we've had footage available to us. And, today it's raining in Texas. It's raining in Florida, where my boyfriend lives, where In5D headquarters is. And we looked at a map of the United States, and it's cloudy in most of the areas, so we can't really see the sun today. We can't check it out for ourselves. So I thought that was really interesting. But I do have a rudimentary question that you might be able to answer, and that is, if the sun is our the way that we get warmth, and you're up in an airplane at 30,000 feet and there's ice, it's cold. Is it the energy when it comes through a certain part in the atmosphere that finally warms up at a certain spot, or how do we get our warmth from the sun?
Well, first of all, it's important to say to people not to look at the sun, because that will damage your eyes. You can only look at the sun if you have the appropriate equipment. To look at the sun will burn out your retina. So please, your audience, don't go looking at the sun unless you have the right equipment. Yes, if you're flying at 30,000, 40, 50, 60,000 feet, then ice forms. And this is to do with the cooling of the air. And as you say, it's sunlight reacting with elements in our atmosphere that creates heat. It will strike the ground, will either be absorbed or be reflected back. The higher up you go, the thinner the oxygen, the thinner the air content, and therefore the colder things get. So the higher up you fly, the more you're likely, as long as there is some oxygen, to create an ice shield. That's reasonably well understood in 3D science.
Okay, thank you. Going to move right along here, because I know that you don't have a whole lot of time to spend with us.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will carry on a little bit longer.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question from the chat room regarding the Anunnaki, the Archons. And Jeff Gates in the chat room says that you don't speak much about the Archons, and I do know that you do talk about the Anu, which we call, I think, the street term would be the Anunnaki. And, of course, those are anybody who's listened to any of my shows or read any of my articles knows that those are the group of beings that are basically in control of the planet and the dumbing down of the human body to where people are, basically asleep. But as far as the food chain goes, do the Anunnaki have beings that have been termed in other people like Wes Penray and Cameron Day have called, and John Lash have called them the Archons. Are you familiar with the Archons? And are they from another universe? If so, if they do have if there is another hierarchy there above the Anunnaki?
I don't mention the Archons because they are the number one enemy. Perhaps it's not right to mention good, bad, and evil and friends because we should all be trying to bring everything together to understand. But I agree. It is something that I have felt like that I needed to put out there just for the people to have the information, because that is a very huge part of awakening, is realizing that this is not our fault. Yeah. So the reason I don't talk about the Archons is because I like people to come to me, and I have to be careful. When I meet people, I don't just meet good intentions people. I meet a lot of people who don't have good intentions either towards me or towards what I'm aiming to do. And if somebody can come to me and tell me the truth about the Archons and can do it holding, my energy, then I'm very happy to have them as a friend. The Archons are the great controllers who even manipulate the reptilians. The Archons are not a visible, necessarily a physical force. They are an energetic force. They are not to be confused with the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are a group of semi-reptilian Syrians who came to this planet and then, through hybridization and a marriage, for want of a better word, created a set series of rulers on this earth. So if you were to look at the top of the pyramid, and we'll use a pyramid because that's the Illuminati symbol, where the Eye of Horus would be, we could put the Archons. And just below the Archons, we could put the Alpha Draconis reptilians. But then we've got to remember there are interdimensional entities, such as demonic forces, genes, which would then sit somewhere not directly underneath that, but would just be offset to the side. So the Archons are the puppet masters for the streams. I hope that helps the person who's asked that question.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about how humanity is going to move forward. I know that with our human brains at this time, unless your left hemisphere is in tune and balance with your right hemisphere and you're able to connect with your higher self, it's a little bit hard to imagine how in the world we are really going to free ourselves. But, in my mind, I've read a lot of Dolores Cannon. She's talked about two Earths, and I've also read about people who see, multiple versions of Earth, because Earth itself is multidimensional as well. And from what I understand, I am here as a being that's grounding in this energy that's coming in, these photons, this unseen energy. I'm raising my vibration. I'm taking this energy and I'm grounding it into the planet, and I'm also sharing it out of my heart center with all of humanity, with all the beings on the planet, and with the Earth itself. Now, do you think that this is a viable way that we are going to basically vibrate ourselves out of this reality? And if so, does that kind of look like different levels or versions of Earth? Are we going to move to a new Earth?
Well, we've got to make sure we don't get mixed up in the New Age nonsense here.
Yes, please clarify.
Very, very clear. Many, many people come to me and say, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm here to do something, but I don't know what it is. And I say to them, the very fact that you're here, you're living, and you are keeping your sovereignty is what you have to do. Now, for many people who are still stuck in a 3D understanding, that's not enough for them. They want to go and do something. So I say, write a book, create something, create through music, through song, through art, through literature, create. If that's what you wish to do, create. But the very fact that for most of these people, and you very eloquently, Michelle, just explain exactly what you do. We're not all here to go on radio shows. We're not all here to be in politics. We're not all here to do that. The hard work is living every day on this 3D planet, dealing with 3D human issues. That's the hard part. Surviving, making sure that you have enough love for people, forgiveness for people, and trying to challenge yourself all the time to your own thoughts. When you have a negative thought, trying to think, well, why did I have that negative thought? Because what you're doing is you're actually putting a template, a program out across the earth to all the other humans that you come into contact with, and you are setting an example. If you manifested here and you incarnated on this earth at this time, then you are here as an example to those who are not yet ready to develop, and that's what you have to do. And so I say to everybody, the very fact that you're asking me, what do I need to do, shows me that you're awake, but you need to accept that just being here was the job that you had in hand.
Okay, so I like to talk about the things that I do in my life that may not be what other people need to do, but a lot of it does have to do with what I call raising my vibration, which would keep me, in my opinion, with a force field around me that would not allow me to be manipulated by the ELF frequencies, or, I don't drink fluoridated water, and I've tried to change my diet. So those things are all good for people who have woken up, as far as like if they want to do anything. The number one thing starts with loving yourself and making sure that you feel that hole in your heart, that need that you have for love, because a lot of times, it's basically that we haven't acknowledged the spirit, within us. And then, raising your vibration is just simply doing things that make you happy and getting your body clear of toxins so that you can operate with your higher self and do the second part of what you're here to do, which may be more specific for some people. They may, and I think a lot of the people that are listening today and on the recording will probably, do realize that they have a higher, a secondary purpose, which is pretty specific, like in your case, to be a spokesperson for, the extraterrestrial, what people call extraterrestrial, which is really us, that type of information and spreading information. So I agree with you. But what I want to know is, I'm not sure if this is part of the New Age deception, and I think it is. I feel like that, this is a construct that we're in, and it is an experience. It is an illusion. It is a hologram. And what I'm hearing from some of these people on YouTube and such is that they want to restore humanity, the physical body, to the time, like in Atlantis, where before the human body was changed. And, I personally started thinking about that, and I really don't want another Atlantis. Personally, that didn't work out too well. There's always a hierarchy involved. I do feel like, I was working on the other side, the side of domination and power and control as a healer, and, learned about the secrets, the occult secrets. And you either did that or you were suffering. You didn't have, you either climbed to the top, and it's no different in society today and working, jobs and everything, climbing to the top, trying to make all this money. But you either did that or you suffered. But I don't want that. I want to exit this construct. Is that a viable thought to have?
It's the only thought to have.
Thank you. So if I were to drop my body tomorrow this is a question I asked on our radio show last night where we went 3 hours talking about this in 5D radio. If I were to drop my body tomorrow, I have written about the reincarnation system that the Greys developed, which takes you through the tunnel, and there's the bright white light at the end of the tunnel. You may be greeted by loved ones, or you may be greeted by what looks like a family member, which is actually technology or morphing, or they're in your head projecting this, to talk you into coming back again into another lifetime, so they can basically wipe your memory again and feed off of your energy. If I were to die tomorrow, I have this knowledge. I don't. If we are in a jail, what did you call that before we have been segregated from people from other planets or whatever? Where am I going to go?
Right. Okay. This is a prison planet. That's exactly what this is. Hollywood has spent as much effort as it can on training people through films that when they have a near-death experience, there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel, they walk towards the bright light, and all is well and good. This is all part of the Illuminate's control system. When a physical body dies, your soul will attempt to go back to source. That's its natural reaction. As it tries to go back to source, it is captured in a very sophisticated electromagnetic grid. It is subject to a massive amount of power, which effectively wipes that soul's lifetime memory. The soul is then forcibly put back into another body, and so the cycle goes on. Now, let me explain to you why that is happening. I spoke about Albert Einstein. Imagine Albert Einstein living to the age of 90, and then he dies, and then his soul comes back into another body, and he remembers everything he did as Albert Einstein number 1. He doesn't start his experiments from the beginning again. He carries them on from where he left off. So in the space of about 250 years, the human race would have developed to such a technological level that it could throw off the prison guards. And the whole spiritual situation would just happen overnight. Well, the guys who are determined to keep the status quo and don't want human race to evolve, don't want us to transcend, and so that is why our souls are absolutely zapped every time we ascend, simply because they don't want humans to outthink the prison guards. So when your physical body dies, instead of looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, just say to yourself, I wish to return to source. And if you see a very welcoming light, just physically turn from it. Physically in your mind, because although you won't have a body, you will have the ability to move. So turn from it and keep saying to yourself, I want to return to source. It is one of the most elaborate traps and cons the Illuminati, through their friends in the media, have actually perpetrated on the human race in the last 60, 70 years.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question in the chat room from Greg Prescott, our host tonight. And he says, when we see our loved ones after leaving the body, are they real or clones placed there to lure us into the false light?
My answer to that is only the soul whose body is departed will know that truth.
Okay.
The problem is that if you are brainwashed in the old-fashioned sense of the word through school, you accept that what you're seeing is an angel or it's your great-grandmother come to be with you. But if you are knowledgeable and you're already aware of this in the living life, when you die, you will actually be able, through your own higher self, your own knowledge, to be able to decide whether you're looking at a holograph, whether you're looking at some sort of mind trickery, or whether it really is somebody from your own family who has come to guide you. So I can't answer that except to say that the person at the right time will know the truth, providing they've thrown off the shackles that the 3D world had put on them when they were alive.
Well, and thank you for answering that. And, if there was some kind of cosmic wild card that we aren't privy to, for instance, where I'm just using my imagination, let's just say a doorway appears and it's time for you to walk through the doorway and go home. I guess in a way, since we are in a holographic illusion, I would think that could also be a possibility, that doorway could be a trick into another fifth dimensional construct in this matrix. So I guess discernment is truly something that right now we need to practice, and I have been practicing, and it's taken me a good 5 years to really start learning how to trust my own body, which tells me discernment. But without the body, I don't know that I'd know what to do. But if there was a doorway show up, does that sound like something that could be a cosmic wild card, all of a sudden, I know that we would like it to be all of a sudden, but let's just say it did happen, that there would be a doorway to walk through and we're done.
Well, it depends. I mean, if it's a portal and they've already been opening and people have already been going through them, if you want to go to the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension, then walk through it. That's your choice. That's what you want to do. If you feel that your work on Earth is still not done, then you stay on Earth. And every individual will make his or her own choice.
Well, thank you for answering that, because I do know that there are a lot of vested interest extraterrestrial groups with trying to claim their portion of humanity, and that is one way that they will be try to do that. It's your choice. You can come here. Let's go to fifth dimensional Earth. That is just, they don't tell them that, once you come here, you can have everything you want, but you're still in the matrix. And that's not the fifth dimensional Earth that I choose. I choose to help raise awareness, and one of these days I'm getting the heck out of here. You said, let's talk about, I wanted to go back to CERN. I didn't talk about it right then because I had so many other questions that were in line. But you said in another interview that 2016 was the final point in time that the Anunnaki could have the chance to exit. They're trapped here with us too, and they were trying to basically reactivate, from what I understand, I heard, the Stargate that has been closed down to trap them here in their own creation. Now, I read an article yesterday that they're going to be trying to bring CERN back online here. Here we are in 2015. They've only got 1 year to do that. I don't feel that that's going to happen, but I did want to bring it up because if I had that kind of experience in December 21st of 2012, and they try to bring that sucker back online, it could cause a lot of problems for people who have woken up, and energetically they could feel a lot of different ascension flu symptoms, or in this case, negative energy type systems, or swirling vortexes. So what more do you know about them trying to bring CERN online this year?
Well, it's a great deal more than individuals feeling ill. It's about putting back the whole ascension process by years, because if the corridor is reestablished, then the negatives will be reinforced, which means that they will put into power for many years longer than they are predicted to do so. So yes, one of the byproducts is that individuals who are already very psychic feel the backlash from the Earth, from the confrontation between the CERN electronic device and the Earth consciousness itself. But of greater importance is the fact that if the corridor is reopened, it just puts back all our work. And yes, people like you, me, and many, many others will have to come back here again to carry on where we left off. They were following two routes. When the device failed to operate on the 21st of December 2012, in actual fact, it took them half a day to find the problem and half a day to order the part, and another sort of quarter of the day to actually replace it, by which time it was too late. So the device did not operate. They put a lot of pressure on Japan. Japan is at the moment building a linear collider. Remember that the CERN is a circular or semi-circular device. So a linear collider. But they decided that as a stopgap measure, they would pump in absolutely billions of dollars into the CERN device and try to rank it up so that it had more and more power, not just to rely on the Japanese model. And I said this last year. I said they've lost throw the dice. They have to do what they're doing now. And I predicted this because I said 2016 is the end of 2016 is their final chance. So they will throw everything they've got into this device to try to get it operational at the level that would perhaps break through this portal. Because you see, after 2016, this corridor will collapse. These corridors or portals, only some of them are very, very long-lasting. Many of them are temporary and just collapse. And this one is due to collapse very soon. So I'm not at all surprised that they are throwing everything they've got into this machine. But I can tell you now, the machine will fail to operate on the day that it's supposed to.
I agree. And to wrap things up, I have two questions. The first one is, so let's say that we get through 2016. Does that mean, we're not going anywhere and they're not coming in and we're basically here stuck? Are we still, stuck in this reality with them, or are we moving somehow do we have to meet a majority of a percentage of humanity that wakes up to decide to collectively create another reality, or how does this work?
Well, we've already done that. The only reason that 21st of December 2012 worked was because 3 million humans woke up. That was the critical mass number. If we didn't have 3 million across the planet at a very high level of attention, then the planet would have just shrugged its shoulders and said, you know what, I'm leaving you lot behind because you've not come up to the plate. You've not stepped up to the plate. I can't be bothered with you. Fortunately, 3 million people did make it before the Earth remembered its covenant. When humanity was very, very young on this planet, it loved this Earth, and the Earth's consciousness and the human consciousness were one. Now we've been divorced from that, but the planet, the Mother Earth, has not forgotten the covenant it made with emerging humanity. And as long as there's a number of people on this planet who hold true to those values, the Earth won't shrug us off like fleas off the back of a dog. The New Age want you to believe that you will walk straight into the fifth dimension. You'll avoid the fourth and you'll go straight to the fifth dimension. Well, that's not really going to happen, because like a ladder, you have to go through certain tests to be able to go through to the next one. It's all about learning. And we have to learn the fourth dimension or fourth frequency before we go to the fifth. We're nearly done with the third now. But a lot of the bad guys who really want the status quo to remain, they're in the fourth frequency. And they don't want humanity to evolve, because you know what, when we leave the third, we'll actually go into their world. And which means that they'll have nowhere to go. They'll have to actually face us up. Now, what do I mean by that? Because people now have got this image of opening the door and walking into another room, and it's all different. What will actually happen is that these creatures will be seen amongst us much more than they are now. They'll have nowhere to hide. They'll have to decide what they want to do. Do they want to share and live side by side with humanity, or do they want to actually go down fighting? And I honestly don't know the answer to that at the moment.
Okay. And so the fifth dimension is, not really that bad if you think about, whether you're ready to just give up your physical body and go back home, your work is done, or if you still want to have this physical experience. And even though it is within the construct, eventually the construct will be dissolved, and then you'll be left with, you will have basically defeated those beings in the fourth dimension that wish to cause us harm, and we will have taken our sovereign rights back to this planet to be able to have a physical experience in a body, which is how we grow spiritually, because otherwise we have no other way to expand and to reflect back to our Creator. So, it's not looking so bad after all to walk through a door to the fifth dimension when you look back at the third dimension, with the way it is now. But I still don't know what I'd decide to do, whether I'd be ready to just go home or to go through that door and experience that for a while and then drop my body. Why not try all kinds of different things? This is kind of a silly question, but a lot of people who are having this experience of awakening are seeing the binary code 1111, whether it be on a clock or whether it be derivatives of 11 being like 22, 33, 222, I have a funny thing that, Spirit likes to work with me on Facebook, and I have my notifications, and I can clear them off, and inevitably, within a couple of hours, I've worked my way back to 111, and it always just sticks there. It's not like it's at 110 or 112, and, synchronicity is just abounding in my life. But I have to be curious, is that a positive thing? Just, keep going, girl, you're doing a good job, or could that possibly be a code to keep us stuck in this third dimension thinking?
Right. Yes, I was on Skype maybe 3 days ago with somebody, and she said to me, "Oh, look at that! It's 1111 on the clock." But different numbers mean different things to different people. Everybody will, at some point, perhaps, have that synchronistic view where they'll see a number and it repeating for them. I had an experience maybe 3 years ago where somebody called on my door 3 days running, and it was exactly at 2:30, a different person, different reasons, every day for 3 days. Exactly at 2:30, the doorbell went, somebody was at the door. And that actually is very complex, and there's not just one answer. What can often be happening is the matrix can be breaking down. The actual false reality is actually falling through, and lots of things are coming together. The negatives will attempt to control people through code, but that tends to be done subliminally. It's certainly done when the person's asleep, or if they're already mind-controlled and they have chips. It tends to be rather watching television or listening to certain particular pop songs. If you're looking at randomly at a clock and the number comes up, that's probably more of a positive thing.
Okay.
Negative things tend to be associated with elite governments.
And you've explained it beautifully, because I knew that in my heart, but then I started studying the subliminal messages in advertising and music, and the fact that this is a binary code matrix, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't steering people in the wrong direction. So sometimes we question ourselves, and we need to just learn to trust ourselves a little bit more. So Simon, as a galactic ambassador, I'm very proud to bring you forward to my listeners, and I really appreciate the fact that you've spent time out of your busy schedule to be with me. I'm just here, as a person on the planet that is having this experience for this fabulous talking with you and connecting with your energy. And my heart just wells up, thinking of what help you've given to all the people who are listening tonight. And I was just wondering, have you started writing that book before I let you go here?
Well, Michelle, I'm not important at all. There's nothing special about me. I'm just an ordinary person speaking the truth. There are many, many people on this planet who do a much more important job than I do. Okay, in terms of the book, yes, it's written, in the sense that it's all written down on a CD and on a memory stick. I've been holding back finding a publisher because a number of publishers wanted me to take out certain references to secret intelligence services. A number of publishers told me that they have deals with Intel, that certain things have to be run past them, etc., etc. And I said, I'm not playing that game at all. So what I'll probably do this year is self-publish, because it seems to me that no publisher actually is prepared to take on my book without making substantial changes to it. So I'm going to be looking to self-publish this year. So I've got my fingers crossed.
Well, and I have a very similar story. I've just began a book. I have the whole outline planned. On each section, in each chapter, I know exactly what I'm going to say, and I as well will be self-publishing the book and putting it on Amazon for hard copy and e-book. And it's not, it's not about the money. It would be nice to have a publisher to distribute it to as many people as possible, because that's what we're here to do. But on the other hand, it has to be authentic and have our own vibration in it, and that's why I'm going to self-publish. And so I can agree with you on that point. And so So I very much appreciate you being here. And again, your website is simonparks.org. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, it's the new year. So I look back on my last year, and I want to thank Rebecca for all the help and support she's given me. And I want to thank Wynne, a great guy who's helped me. And I want to thank Laura for all the help. So in many ways, I'm looking back on the last year and thinking the highs and the lows. And like you said, we're on the home straight now. We need to look forward. It's been an absolute pleasure, Michelle, to chat to you. It's a pleasure to connect with your audience. If people want to drop by and send me an email through the website, I'll be delighted to have a chat with them.
Great, and you're be welcome to put a copy of this interview on your website if you'd like to be able to inform those who are looking for information. And so, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your New Year's Day, a wonderful 2015 to you and to all of our listeners. And I don't know how to hang you up on this type of Skype, so I'll let you hang up yourself. I have a few more announcements left for my listeners today.
I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Simon. And thank you for joining us to this wonderful, I talked really fast today. I felt like I've drank a whole pot of coffee to be able to talk that fast because I knew that Simon didn't have, the usual 2 to 3 hours that I usually spend. And it's funny because my partner Greg had a dream last night, and I appeared to him in another lifetime and spelled my name out for him, and it was Gabrielle, but it short was Gabby. And I just find that hilarious because here, I've gabbed a lot in the last couple of days. We did 3 hours last night and about an hour and a half today. So speaking of last night, we had a wonderful New Year's Eve extravaganza with In5D. Greg Prescott hosted it, and Helene Lipson and myself co-hosted. And you can find that interview. We brought several people on, and we had the most amazing, almost as amazing as today, the most amazing guests, repeat guests call in and give their rendition of how they feel 2015 is unfolding, and perhaps even 2016 and 2017. And you can find that interview on Blog Talk on In5D. You can also find it. I went ahead and uploaded it to CosmicStarseeds.com, which is my website that I keep all of my interviews and all of my articles just separate. That's all you're going to find on that website is that, just so everything is there in case another website goes down or whatever happens. It's CosmicStarseeds.com. We're also putting it up on In5D YouTube channel. That'll be coming up today or tomorrow, and so you'll want to subscribe to the In5D YouTube channel if you have not done that. I want to give a special thanks, what I usually do at the beginning of the show, to my partner, Greg Prescott. He's the webmaster at In5D.com that makes this radio show on In5D Radio possible. He's also the webmaster for BodyMindSoulSpirit.com, which are two absolutely wonderful databases to be able to get information. Everybody that is here on the planet right now is in a different stage of awakening. We have people who are just now waking up. We have people that have been awake for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. We've got people who pretty much have been waiting for a very long time for, honestly, as Simon pointed out to us, and as I really thought in my heart, for us to walk through a doorway December 21st of 2012. And Greg Prescott was one of the first persons to tell people, nothing's going to happen, it's not going to happen. We're not just going to suddenly appear into another dimension December 21st of 2012. Apparently, the end times was, according to, from what I understand now, from my personal experience, was the fact that they were going to try to use CERN to open up that Stargate again or something and bring the bad guys in. So, I just have had an amazing show today because I can personally put my experience into what Simon Parks has told me, and I know that there's a higher level of beings that are working with him to be able to give him the information that I needed to know, and it all works together because then I can turn around and give it to you guys. And so stay tuned to In5D.com for more articles. I've just been really inspired now with all the radio show last night and the show today to be able to write some articles with how I am viewing this experience. It will resonate with those people who are having a similar experience or that can really maybe, have a desire to become the way shower that they came here to be. And with that being said, I mentioned this last night, In5D Radio has 2 slots available, one on Friday night and one on Saturday night, and Greg Prescott pays for a premium subscription, which has no advertising and can go up to 3 hours per show. We'd really like to get together some indigo, crystal, starseed children, rainbow children. That being said, that could be somebody, in their 20s. It could be teenagers. It could be young kids. We'd like to get together and put a show together for one of those nights at least for, people, younger kids to be able to, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I'm 45 years old. I can resonate and talk to a lot of different age groups. But what I really like to see is a radio show for the children. And one of the things that I have in mind is creating a website for the children as well, and with a chat room just for the children. And I mean, it doesn't mean that adults can't go on there, but it is specifically intended to be for the children who have more strands of their DNA activated where, they are having these psychic visions, or they are being able to speak to each other through telepathy, or they already have telekinesis. They're being able, they can move objects with their mind. These kinds of things are, very confusing for the parents because they don't understand what's happening, and they're confusing for the children until they get together with people of like minds and they're able to discuss it and decide what they're going to do, how they're going to keep from being shunned from other children under societal programming pressure and things like that. So without talking about that too much tonight, I just wanted to put that out there to manifest it. And wanted to let you know that in my spare time, I'm a certified holistic life coach. Basically, that is a very fancy way of saying I'm here to help. And I can help with anything regarding spirituality. I can help somewhat with diets. I'm not perfect on my own diet, but I can tell you I know how to listen to my body, and I know what I like, and I know what my body wants, and I know what feels good and what doesn't. And you can check out my website, www.michellewalling.com, to learn more about what I can do for you as a holistic life coach. It is my one source of income at this time. Everything else I do is for free. If, by the way, you would like to contribute, I've never asked for this before, and I'm not trying to, push it on anybody, but if you would like to contribute, there should be a donation button on In5D.com, and if not, I'll make sure that Greg puts one back up there because we're here to help, but, we have pulled ourselves out of society. We don't have 8 to 5 jobs. And for those of you who don't have anything to contribute, I would never want that. But what I do hope for you is that you find a way to manipulate and work your way around this society that we have now to where you're not stuck in a job, that you're giving your energy away that you're not enjoying. Hopefully everybody out there can find something that they enjoy doing that will bring enough income to make it through to that moment where that doorway does appear. And wherever it goes, at least if it gets out of this this dimension that we're in, they can't follow us through. So thank you for joining me tonight. And next week's guest is astrologer Carl Boudreau, and we'll be discussing his 2015 forecast, which seems to, from what I've learned today with Simon, it's going to be bittersweet 2015. I mean, we're going to have many opportunities to work through extreme difficulties as well as extreme pleasures and extreme high vibrations coming into the planet. And for people who are not prepared, it is going to be a difficult time. For people who have awoken to what's happening and prepared their bodies for accepting that energy, and they're basically riding the wave versus drowning underneath the current, it's going to be a wild ride. And we're here to support you. And you need to support your fellow humans as well, and continue to do all those things. Like Simon said, when I was asked, Simon says, isn't that funny? When I was asking questions today, what about this, what about that? And his answer was, every little thing that you're doing is helping humanity, whether you know it or not. We already made it, folks. We made it through the majority population, the majority number needed to be on this positive timeline. And we're here, and we need to continue to hold that space for everybody else to move into it. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure to share this information, my own experience, and Simon Parks. And stay focused in your heart, and stay grounded. And I look forward to our next time.